Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Inside Guns with your host, me, the Yankee Marshal. Today, I want to talk about the new open carry ban in Washington State. I'm sure a lot of you have heard about this. Today, I want to talk about what it actually is and kind of what we're going to do about it. If you haven't been paying attention, Washington State just passed a new law that bans open carry at rallies or on Capitol grounds or in the Capitol building up in the state capital of Olympia. Also bans open carry at gun rallies, etc. I do believe pretty much anywhere. I don't know if it's just on Capitol grounds. I'll have to get back to you on that. But I believe anywhere there's a gun rally or any type of political rally, you cannot open carry a firearm. Now, this is for one reason and one reason only. Well, actually, it's for two reasons. The first reason is because politicians are getting scared. They don't like looking out their window and seeing people with rifles, with rifles slung on their shoulders, because they start thinking, wow, the founders made sure that those people can keep those in case they have to do something about me, about rogue politicians who no longer serve the people. That makes them nervous. And it should make them nervous. One of the things they said during the hearings was, politicians are looking out their windows and seeing people with rifles. How are they not supposed to feel threatened? They should feel threatened. That's the whole reason we have a Second Amendment, to defend against tyranny, both foreign and domestic. The Founding Fathers knew that the chances that our own government would become one of our greatest enemies, one of the greatest enemies to freedom in this country, was very likely, more so than another power becoming a threat to us. So that's what the Second Amendment is for, so they should be nervous. Another thing, a smaller aspect of it, is they want to keep rifles away from people when they have rallies or when they're at the Capitol. They don't want them to have what they consider an offensive weapon that might give them more of a chance against their protectors, the law enforcement. So they don't want people to carry rifles, because if you have to carry concealed, there's no chance you're going to be carrying a rifle, at least not being able to not walk funny while you're doing it. So it's those two things. They don't want to be frightened or intimidated, which they should be intimidated. And two, they don't want people having rifles. They don't want to have the citizens to have an advantage over their, like I say, their own private army, the law enforcement. So those are the reasons that they have banned it. Now, first off, I want to say one thing that's sad is that we have a lot of people in the gun community that are supporting this, actually. They don't care. They're like, fine with me. I didn't like when guys showed up with rifles at these rallies anyway. I've been a part of many different groups and organizations that have had meetings, and during those meetings we've had people say, how do we stop these people from open carrying at the rallies? How do we stop these guys from bringing rifles? Because the media is singling them out as our representatives. They're portraying them as the normal guy there. And to those people, I always say, hey, let's not start talking about how we can stop people from exercising their rights. If you don't want them to be the primary focus, dilute them. If you're having a rally and only 50 people show up and 10 of them are carrying rifles, well, yeah, then they might look like a significant portion of your group. If you can get 500 people there, those 10 people don't look so important anymore. They kind of blend in, they fade away. That's how we deal with people who you think might be a bad visual, PR visual at the rallies. Dilute them. Be involved. Have people show up. Bring people with you. That's how you deal with that. You don't infringe upon their rights just because you think it would be beneficial in the long run. That's one thing I don't like about this. This is a very bad precedent when you're a gun person or a freedom-minded person and you say, well, this is an infringement, but in the end it's going to be better for us because it's going to keep the undesirables from looking undesirable. That's not okay. You don't just have your principles when they benefit you, and you don't give them turn away from your principles when it benefits you. If so, they're not principles. It's just you being very, whatever serves me at the moment. That's not a principled person. It's making excuses for how, this is not that bad of a thing. Is it really that bad as far as infringing on people's rights and affecting them every day and their ability to exercise the Second Amendment? No, it isn't. But it's still an infringement and you shouldn't accept it. So I wanted to let people know kind of what it was, like I said, and how it's going to affect people, which is pretty much most people not going to affect at all. I hope I didn't say infect a minute ago. I meant affect. But it's not going to affect most people at all because, unfortunately, the vast majority of people don't go to the Capitol for the rallies. And the vast majority of people who do go don't open carry while they're there. So, not going to affect hardly anybody. This law is basically a bunch of do about nothing. So getting all upset about it and getting angry and all this other stuff about it, it's not really warranting that. But we should still be aware of it and be aware that it's an infringement and not support it. But like I say, not really going to affect a lot of people. But here's the thing. And one thing I will add is if you live in the state of Washington, just remember, before you get too upset, we can still conceal carry at rallies, public gatherings, in the Capitol building. A lot of places can't even do that. And yet we can still open carry everywhere else without a permit. A lot of places can't do that. I like to be a glass half full person. But that doesn't mean I don't want to refill my glass. Just because I can appreciate that it's half full, I'd rather have a full glass. So I don't like this law and I want it to go away. So that might have people saying, well, what are we going to do to fight this law? Well, we'll probably fight it. I picture if anyone fights it, it'll be the people at Sporting Systems, Dan and them. Their group is at the forefront always in this state. But here's the thing. We might not really fight it that hard right now because there's other things on our plate. Other things that are way more important. And politicians also know when they pass things like this, they're distractions. It divvies up the focus. It divvies up the money. And right now, we don't have time to be worried about something like this that doesn't really affect people when we've still got 1639 we're continuing to fight. So, as far as there being a huge fight against this, probably not going to be a huge visual fight against it, out in the open, throwing fits fight, because there's other things to focus on right now. If you are trying to save every penny to pay for a lawyer to fight a murder rap, well, you don't waste your time and your effort and your money paying parking tickets. You take care of what's more important. And that's kind of where we are in Washington right now. So I just wanted to talk about it today, though. Like I said, I don't agree with it. And I especially don't agree with pro-gun people that are okay with it because, hey, it gets rid of those riffraff, Don't like that attitude. I say everyone gets to exercise their Second Amendment rights however they see fit, as long as they're not breaking the law. And this ordinance, this rule, this new law is not about stopping crime at rallies or anything. There hasn't been any. None. So they're not stopping any crimes. They're just doing it to make themselves feel better so that they don't feel intimidated, so that they still feel like they have an advantage if things do go wrong, that the police will be better armed than the group outside. That's what it's about. And as far as fighting it, well, we will, but there's bigger fish to fry right now. There's a lot of other things to be worried about, a lot of other things to deal with. This really isn't that big of an issue. It's hardly on the radar of most people that are fighting for their rights in Washington State and the rest of the country. So don't panic about it. Don't get too upset about it. Like I say, it's just open carry, and it's just at rallies and at the Capitol, in the Capitol building and on the Capitol grounds. Probably not going to affect you at all. It affects me a little bit, because if I go now, I got to make sure I'm concealed carrying, which I usually do, so not a big deal. But like I said, don't get too angry. Don't get too upset. Just know this is par for the course. This is the stuff the antis do. It's not going to have any big effect in the long run, especially if we start winning these Supreme Court cases that are coming up that I think we're going to win. So take it with a grain of salt, kind of. It happened. It's not the worst thing in the world. It's not acceptable. Not the worst thing in the world. And eventually, it's going to be a moot point because I think we're going to be winning so many fights for the Second Amendment soon that are a much bigger fight than this one, that this hardly deserves any attention. All right, now that I've spent way too much time blabbering on about that, I want to move on to the next segment of our show, which is my favorite part of the show, Gun Talk. And today for Gun Talk, I want to answer a question people have been asking me about which do I prefer of two very specific handguns. Which one do I think is the better gun in this category? And the guns I'm talking about are the FN57 and the Ruger 57. Now, these guns are very similar in a lot of ways. They're very similar in size. They both shoot 5.7 by 28 millimeter ammo. They're just very similar guns. But when you compare them head to head, there's definitely, in my opinion, a clear winner as to which is the better of the two guns. Now, disclaimer right off the bat here, I have owned a 5.7 before. I have not owned a Ruger 57. I have, however, shot both of them. I've shot the Ruger 5.7 a few times now. And I think I know enough about both of them to give a general comparison. I think most people who know from watching my videos in the past, I wasn't too crazy about the FN 5.7. In fact, I kind of reluctantly turned over ownership to another family member, not completely willingly, but it happened, and didn't really bother me because, like I say, didn't love the gun. But I want to look at these two guns today and see which one do I think actually has an edge as far as being the better 5.7 gun. Which one do I think you should buy if you're looking for one? So let's start off by looking at the general design of the two. Which one do I think is just an overall better designed gun? Well, I'm not going to surprise anyone with this. I like the Ruger better. The Ruger has a solid metal slide, doesn't have that weird polymer cover on it to give it that plasticky feel. It just seems like it's an overall better thought out gun. Just everything about it I like a little better. So as far as just general design, I'm going to give the nod to Ruger. Now, let's talk about ergonomics. How does it feel in the hand? Like I say, I've owned one of these. I've shot the other one quite often now. Not quite often, but more than I've shot any other gun recently, pretty much. So how do I think they compare ergonomics-wise? Well, in this category, I'm going to give the nod to the Ruger, because the Ruger's grip just feels a little more manageable to me. It just feels better in my hand. It seems like it's better balanced. I just like it better. I think most of us know out there when you talk about how a gun feels in your hand, it's kind of subjective, but I'm going to say based on how I perceive both guns, the Ruger is the clear winner. You might be slightly different than me, but if your hands are similar size to me, I bet you're going to find the same results I did, and that is that the Ruger is the better of the two, ergonomically speaking. With that being said, let's talk about the trigger. Which gun has the better trigger? Now, I will say the FN trigger feels a little crisper, a little sharper, but the Ruger trigger feels a little lighter. It is a little bit spongier, a little softer, but overall, I think it feels better. So when it comes to trigger, I'm going to give the nod once again to the Ruger. The Ruger wins this category also. Next, let's talk about the controls, the safety, the slide lock, and all the other stuff. You know, all the little jiggly bobs and knobs and things on the guns. When it comes to that, clear winner is the Ruger. The safety's actually usable. It's not this tiny little thin thing. The slide release is a lot easier to use. Everything about it is easier. The only thing I will say is that the FN 5.7 is unique in the way you take it apart, but every other way, the Ruger 5.7 as far as controls and everything else is just better. The Ruger 5.7, in my opinion, wins this category hands down. I can't see how anyone could ever even pretend that those minuscule little flimsy controls on the FN 5.7 are as good as the ones on the Ruger. Although Ruger has had a recall on some of their safeties because they had a defective safety lever go out. But that was on a small number of guns. But if you get that taken care of, the controls on the Ruger are just far better. So now let's move on to sights. Which gun comes with the better sights from the factory? Once again, Ruger runs away with this. That fiber optic front sight is way better than just the plain white dot sight that comes on the FN. And plus, Ruger has greater availability of sights for it. The FN, very limited on pretty much any aftermarket part you can get. So when it comes to sights, Ruger's the winner out of the box. And also, when it comes to accessories, being able to buy other things for it, sights, etc., Ruger's the winner there too. So that's two categories it takes right there. Sights and being able to get other accessories for it as well. So with that being said, let's move on to reliability. This is a big one. Now in this category, I'm going to say it's kind of a wash. I've heard some people have problems with their FNs. I had a problem or two with mine, but I got it worked out in the end. The Ruger seem to be, everyone is saying, I haven't had a single problem with them. But, you know, they're newer. So you can look at that two different ways. One, they haven't been around long enough to actually have any problems, or they avoided problems right out of the bat, although they do have that problem with the safety. So because of that little problem with the safety, which is easily fixed, and because of issues I've had with my FN in the past, the old one that I used to have, which was one of the Mark 1s, not the Mark 2s, so I'm not saying anything bad about the Mark 2s. I hear the Mark 2s are much better, but I'm just going to call this a wash, but I am going to give it kind of a slight nod to the Ruger. That fact that they've been out for a while now and they're a new gun and they're not having a lot of problems, that speaks a lot. So it looks like I'm going to give this category, by the tiniest margin, to Ruger. So that means Ruger has won every category. So when we get down to the bottom here and we declare a winner, of course, it's got to be the FN57. And you might say, well, why is it the FN57? Why isn't the Ruger? Why isn't the Ruger the winner? It's the better gun overall, you said. Well, there's one very big reason that the FN57 is still the winner. And that's because the Marines on Battlestar Galactica, they didn't carry a Ruger. All right, everybody, I want to end the show today with our viewer EDC of the day. And today we have Jackson J. And he is carrying his SIG P226, or PIG 226, I like to say, in a 1791 holster. One of the best guns available on the market today, in one of the best holsters available on the market today. And because it is such a good gun and such a good holster, I'm not even going to give him too much slack about the fact that his holster does not match his belt. I am going to give him a little slack for this camera angle, though. Us more full-figured gals should not take pictures at this angle. You got a real Danny DeVito thing going on here with this camera angle there. So I would avoid this if I was you. The only other thing I have to say about his picture here, other than, nice gun, nice holster, ready to rock, is that what is going on with the ventilation duct there? It looks like something has tried to get out of the ventilation duct. And just out of nowhere, this not saying anything specific about anybody, but I do want to say that a good word of advice is, if you ever try to temporarily stash a dead hooker in your ventilation system, make sure they're actually 100% dead before you do that. You really run into some bad situations if you don't, like banged up vent covers like that. But just wanted to say that's our viewer EDC of the day. Like I said, once again, one of the best guns you can carry, a SIG P226, in one of the best production holsters, if not the best production holster I know of, the 1791 Leatherworks holster. So that's our viewer EDC of the day, Jackson J. All right, everybody, that's our show for today. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you come back again tomorrow. Until then, I want to sign off by saying, as far as the state of the world today is concerned, things are what they are. Could be better, but could be a lot worse, but could definitely be better. And if we keep our level heads about us, if we ignore the fear mongers and the profiteers that want to manipulate us, what things will be in the future for those of us that like the Second Amendment and love our freedoms, what things will be is better.